Good evening and welcome to the Psychic Holistic Spotlight. It's my honor and privilege this evening to introduce you to Leah Marie. Also our co-hosts, Kathy and Ken DeMuras. We'd like to interview Leah and have her tell us about her program and what she does with meditation and where she began, how her journey began. Let's begin with that, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay. Well, I'm honored to be here. I just want to say thank you for inviting me on the show. I think it's my second time.
Volume
so this
2.
I feel very privileged. I must have done okay the first time, right? So basically, I am someone that experienced firsthand a pretty tragic situation with a near-death experience. I was riding a horse in the early 2000s, and she reared up and fell over backwards on top of me, and it stopped my heart. And I had to be resuscitated. And fortunately, my father was there, and he had taken a CPR class, which he had taken it like 30 years previously. So I guess when it's really needed, it kicks in. He had never used his training for CPR until I had this occurrence. So he resuscitated me, and it was quite an experience for me, both on spiritual level and also just as a human being having to undergo this whole life-changing experience with, having my body impacted and all of that. And so a lot of people ask me about what happened during the time that I was kind of out of my body, and I often share that it was such an experience of love. It's not even of this earth, the love that I experienced when I was on the other side. And so the love that I experienced was just so amazing, and the feeling of such love and such comfort when I was out of body was tremendous to me, and it made such an impact on me because the contrast from being in the pain body of the injured person, of the earthly experience, and being on the other side, it was so much of a contrast that I couldn't deny it. I couldn't speak about it for a long time. I thought people would think I was crazy, or I was making it up. But I knew in my heart that it did truly happen. And when I started on my journey of healing, it brought me to these different things that I actually teach today. By having this experience, it really impacted me, as I said initially, and meaning that I had to overcome so many hurdles. I had to heal from the physical wounds that I had. I had a concussion, I had a blown out disc, I was having trouble walking. For a week I couldn't even really walk. I had to use a walker after that. And for about 3 months I could only do kind of like a fast-paced walk by the time the end of 3 months after the accident. In the meantime, I also was starting to have some post-traumatic stress symptoms. I was having panic attacks. They increased over time for a while. And when I had approached, my medical providers and said, what can we do? They wanted to put me on all of those medications that they used to prescribe very heavily during the early 2000s. So I tried that route for about 6 months, and I felt that wasn't for me. I felt almost like I was not me anymore. I was kind of a zombie, so I really didn't want to go that route. I wanted something that I could manage on my own, that was natural, and I also was exploring, what happened to me on a spiritual level, and finding that there were that vibration of love, that sensation, because I really felt my experience more than visually saw. I think that's important.
Were there any individuals there to talk to you or to greet you, or that you saw? Or?
There was a being that I felt. You know, I always say, you know, when you're just feeling so loved, like you're being hugged and you're just in a situation where it's so warm and loving and you just feel so good and appreciated. There was a being there that made me feel that and was actually, I felt, cradling me. And I have often equated it to Jesus, you know, and I feel, though, that it's hard to explain because it isn't of this earth. The best way that I have been able to explain it is that over there, it's like you're in this sea or this ocean of love, and you're like a gallon of the water, you know, but you're so connected and it's all flowing that it's not, I didn't feel like that I was a separate being. I wasn't like this body. I was part of this huge love consciousness. Yeah.
Part of the God force.
Yes. And here, though, I'm in my own container. I move around in that sort of thing. That's kind of my experience of it. And it was all so much feeling. So that's what I get.
What did that lead you to do nowadays?
Right. So the healing process and you know, the journey of that, and then having all of the panic attacks and such, I wanted to feel that love vibration again. I wanted to experience that because I knew that was the route to being inner peace for me and being centered and not having to take some sort of medication that would help calm me down. I felt like that was the answer right there. So I started to explore things such as meditation, emotional freedom technique, and essential oils and that sort of thing. And I really started to practice a lot of different things with spirituality, meaning getting in touch.
Give us a 50-cent definition of emotional freedom technique.
Emotional freedom technique is tapping on different acupuncture points through the face and the shoulder and under the arm and on top of the head. And it's also incorporating breathing and positive affirmations and releasing negative energy from your meridian energy, so the pathways. So with emotional freedom technique, it's pretty amazing that the government is actually recommending it for wartime veterans for post-traumatic stress disorder, and they have a grant-funded program, and over 10,000 veterans have been helped by emotional freedom technique.
Bill is a practitioner of body talk. That's another thing that's another term that they use for identifying it.
Yeah, great.
So what do you do now?
So now basically I do online courses, I do individual sessions, and I teach a lot of different classes in the medical field. I'm kind of the go-to person for the Alzheimer's Association in the Massachusetts and Connecticut area for holistic stress management. For a lot of caregivers experiencing caregiver stress. So I share these techniques.
Now, this is for the caregivers or for the patient?
Both. They've actually shown that meditation can help improve brain function, and that's part of my CE program. Harvard Medical School and several other well-named institutions have identified that if you meditate every day from 12 to 26 minutes, and it's very specific, 12 to 26 minutes, that you actually restructure your brain and you're able to grow brain matter in the areas for learning, language, and compassion, which a lot of people with Alzheimer's, you know, those are the aspects of life that kind of go for them early on in the disease process. So with meditation in early stage dementia, you can actually slow it down. So there's just so much that we're missing in today's world when we're so focused with our cell phones and email and the bombardment of, you know, having instant gratification and instantly having to be available for everyone, that we kind of miss out on something called the alpha brainwave state. And right now, hopefully I'm not putting anyone to sleep and you're learning and listening and having questions in your mind. That's beta brainwave, and then alpha brainwave state is when you're meditating. And it's kind of like when I explain it in my classes, I kind of say it's that spaced out feeling you get when you're daydreaming and that sort of thing. And in order to do things very positive for yourself, you have to be in alpha brainwave state with positive thoughts, not worrying about your bills or anything like that. You have to be really focused on positive thoughts.
How does music apply in regard to the therapy, in regard to meditation and/or visualization? Is there a correlation to those realities?
Absolutely. You know, I often say, because a lot of people have the misconception that meditation is just kind of being quiet and sitting and saying Om, and it really doesn't have to be just that. It can incorporate music. It can incorporate even music along with something called binaural beats. If you put headphones on, you can find binaural beats on the web, and binaural beats synchronize your brain, and it allows your brain to be relaxed, or it can be, you know, if you're having a bad day and you want to change the frequency of the way your brain is working, you can put on binaural beats that synchronize with your brain waves, the frequency of your brain waves, and it will change your brain to be focused in a positive way.
I think you should tell us what binaural beats are.
Yeah, so binaural beats is a great tool to, if you're having trouble getting in the zone, you can layer it with music. So it's a very constant, low humming sound, and that's why it's good to have headphones on. And you can layer it with nature sounds, you can layer it with music. You just go online and you find these things, or they have apps on the cell phones.
White noise, well, not white noise, but
it's a constant beat.
It's a form of a white noise for your brain.
It is like a constant beat, and you can equate it to shamanism, you know, and the drum.
The rattling.
The drum, the rattle, you know, that's very meditative. It's like a rhythmic type sound.
Now, earlier before we came on, you were telling me that you were doing something online, and you named a class that I had never heard of.
Yeah, so
that was what?
Webinars.
Webinars.
Yeah, you got to get online and see webinars. So webinars are
online.
Yes, it's online. I just watched a movie last night, and the woman said, "I've got to get on the line." It was so cute. So yeah, but no, it was online. Yeah, right. Online classes I do. I also do webinars. Webinars are kind of informative, and they bring you into...
So they're like seminars, but on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. They bring you a lot of information.
Are you on that on a particular time so people know? I guess there's a lot of stuff online.
There's
I've never
a ton
seen
of
online,
stuff.
so.
Yeah. You got to get online because a lot's happening, and you know, it's really incredible how much is offered. And so I do the online courses.
Are you on a particular time so people can find you, or how do they find you?
Well, currently I have a presence online. You know, my website. I don't know if I can mention the website. mindhealthcoach.com. And so
say it again.
mindhealthcoach.com. And also I have you know, a page on there that you could register for my email list, and then I email out when I'm doing a webinar the opportunities to have the class.
And people will turn their little computer on and listen to you, and they're going to get what out of listening to you?
Well, I have a couple different series that I do. I do 8 weeks to a better brain. I have holistic stress management techniques. You know, I also have different teachings about life purpose and how to explore that through meditation. Emotional freedom technique is incorporated as well into several of the programs.
So what programs or what organizations do you deal with? I know you mentioned Alzheimer's Association,
right.
But is there any other outreach programs that you associate yourself with?
Well, I primarily do a lot of work for the Alzheimer's Association. You know, I do both the professional aspect for nurses, social workers, and activities directors of nursing homes and different facilities. And I also go into hospitals and work with the care teams there. I have a company I work for. I run the whole kind of gamut of a lot of different aspects. But we have a corporate wellness program, and that's Family Care Plus. We provide living care for elders, and we take care of our caregivers as well as our clients, because it's such an intense job, and it's so important that they're at their best. So the owner of my company, he's a yoga teacher and an Ayurvedic consultant at Kripalu, and we've incorporated my holistic techniques and stress management with his knowledge, and we have this corporate wellness program that's really about self-care, self-love, and we bring that to the families that we service as well. So that's one of the organizations that I'm affiliated with, and then I also do some work with the radio program. It's called the Mind Health Coach Program. And
How do we find that?
so you can go through my website to find that.
Well,
It's on
can't
the
you
front.
just say it's on such and such a
It's
station?
on mindhealthcoach.com, and it's 15:10 a.m. I'm on the fourth Sunday of every month at 8 p.m. So, and you can also
15:10 a.m.
15:10 a.m. And you can also hear it on Fridays. If you go to dreamvision7radio.com, you can hear it there on Fridays at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m.
What about the CD that you brought with you?
Yeah.
What is that? What does that entail?
So my CD, I recorded it a few years ago. They're all meditations on here, 7 meditations, one for every day of the week. There's also a lecture portion on here. And the 7 meditations are timed, so they're about 10 to 15 minutes long, actually 12 to 15 minutes long, so that you can have your daily meditation program if you're struggling with ways to find it, to find the time. You can just pop in the CD, or I have it in MP3 form too. You can find that at mindhealthcoach.com as well. And you can have your program for your daily health, well-being, and spiritual endeavors.
Is it a
It's
guided
yeah.
visualization?
There is visualization in there. There's also opportunities for just tuning into nature. So I have one meditation that's completely about nature, and there's fire sounds in there, there's tropical sounds.
Nice.
A lot of different things are in here, as well as tapping into yourself, like kind of doing yoga nidra, being very internal about the meditation as well as the external. So I really love to play with meditation. It's been an exploration for me, and it's so beneficial, as I'm mentioning to you, with your mind, helping your brain, and overall well-being. They've really shown it's scientifically now, which I think is so phenomenal, how your mind is interacting with your body, and it creates your overall experience. But I find it even more fascinating that our thoughts can impact so much more of the world than we realize. When we're taking care of ourselves, when we're self-care, self-love, we are taking care of all. We're taking care of everything, everyone, everybody, and ourselves.
I think that when we enter into that state of consciousness, our auric body actually has an energy body that's invisible to most people, but it actually affects their subconscious mind, whether they get it consciously or not. And that what we think and the way that we feel, we manifest amongst ourselves. And we can see the result of that when we touch other people's lives with our positivity, because sometimes people's energy are in the lower chakras, and these new paradigms of understanding and practice help to raise the energy above the heart into the higher levels of consciousness. And we're bringing healing to the planet. We're helping to heal the needs of those that are around us. And we don't even necessarily need to know their names or who they are.
Right.
It's by our being present with that energy.
Well said. Absolutely.
Now, I just want to go back to the patients and the caretakers. Now, I was a caretaker for a short time, a few years ago, so I know how stressful that can be, just knowing firsthand. So this can help just as much for the caretakers as it can for the patients?
Yes.
And, do you see a difference, or is it the same kind of change do you see for the caretakers for that?
Yeah, so, I have kind of a little bit of a following now out there in the field of elder care. And it's funny because I have people that come up to me after my presentations often, and they're telling me how it's helping both their clients and their families. So I think that that speaks a lot to me about the effectiveness. As I said, there's the studies that show the brain health. There's also the impact on anxiety. Like I had a huge impact on anxiety that it changes your brain. What happens is when you're meditating and you're doing it consistently, you start to create new neural pathways in your brain. So you start to perceive the world differently. And I know that's challenging with somebody that has Alzheimer's in mid to later stages. But I also found that if you supplement it with music or if you used essential oils, it can really be a beautiful experience. And I actually have some great information about different essential oils that are helpful to people with mid to late stages or even early stage dementia. And one story I like to share is this gentleman that I met in a support group that had mid-stage dementia, and he had lost his ability to speak, which is very frequent. It happens during the disease process. And so I had orange essential oil at this particular group, and I was sharing about meditation and different techniques to help overcome caregiver stress. And then also some folks that are still coherent and have dementia, they're struggling with the knowledge that this is a very difficult disease. There's a difficult disease process that's kind of scary. So, I was sharing the different techniques, and I passed around cotton balls with orange essential oil on it. And one of this particular gentleman that lost his ability to speak, he started speaking. And I didn't realize he had lost his ability to speak before this happened. And he was talking about orange groves that he used to visit in Florida, and also how his family owned a winery in Italy. And so he was talking about this very fluidly. And after the class, the facilitator came up to me and she said, "What did you put in that orange oil?" And I was like, "Nothing. It's pure orange oil. It's essential oil of orange."
Did that stimulate a an old memory?
Yes.
That
It had
that the brain hadn't used in a long time?
Yes.
Is that what it was?
Yes. So the essential oils have something called sesquiterpenes in them. They're molecules that pass through our blood-brain barrier, and you just, like in hospice care, a lot of the nurses apply essential oils because it's so easy to be absorbed into the brain, and the brain interacts in an emotional way, mostly positive because they're positive scents you're using. So this particular instance was it connected some dots for him and inspired him to have a lucid moment. So it was really, really, it was fabulous because his loved one I think it was his wife that was there, was just crying, it was really a beautiful moment.
My mother had very severe dementia, and she basically wasn't too aware of anything. And I used to put the energy into my hand and I put it on her back, and she would, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" So there's a certain level where all that stuff gets bypassed and goes back to something. I mean, how she would feel energy that fast, I'm not quite sure. Is that kind of related back into the orange effect?
Well, I think I'm talking much more primitive and not so, with the energy field. I do certainly know that, energy healing, I am a Reiki master, and, I very much believe that I can help people, but they have to be open to it. So maybe in her state of dementia, and I've noticed that with people with dementia, they're kind of oscillating between two worlds, the other side and here sometimes when they're at later stages. So they're open, they're very open to those energies. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found it interesting. Happened multiple times. So.
Yeah, and I had a patient that was it was only a few days before she passed, and she was having a friend come over from Germany, and she hadn't seen this person in many, many years, and she was very excited, wanted to make sure everything was right. And so I knew she was close to death. She had cancer, and I wanted her to be okay, for the experience. So I gave her some Reiki energy without permission, and I hoped that it was okay at the time. But she wouldn't let me go after I gave her the energy. She was so, kept saying, there's light all around you, and she called me, later in the day to just talk to me and stuff. It was kind of interesting, so.
All right, so we have only a few minutes left.
Right.
So if, is there any way that people can get a hold of you?
Yeah.
If they wanted to talk to you?
Absolutely. So I have a website, as I've mentioned a few times, Mind Health Coach, and I can do individual sessions. I also can speak to groups. I have the online courses, and I also can be approached by email. I have, it's info@mindhealthcoach.com.
Say it again.
Info
Slowly.
info@mindhealthcoach.com.
And where do you work out of?
I can work out of many places. I also
you're
have
basically out of Dartmouth or something?
Westport, Massachusetts.
Westport.
But I travel. I'm going from New York to Boston.
You're a migrant.
I move all over the place. Every week you can find me all over in several places. Connecticut, New York, Boston, Rhode Island, Massachusetts.
At hospitals?
Yes, I'm at a lot of medical facilities. Yeah.
Is the mainline medical association, are they open to this kind of stuff?
More and more so. I started speaking about 10 years ago about this, and it's becoming more and more open, especially since these
Acceptance,
research.
I
Yes, acceptance, definitely.
That's
Yeah.
the word.
Yes, yes.
Because
And they're craving more and more. They're actually combining Western and Eastern medicine practices. It's just been so amazing for me, because I was kind of, like I said, an oddity back a while ago, and people were like, oh, well, we don't know if our group will accept this. But I explain it in a way that blends the science and the spiritual aspect that I think it's comfortable for people.
Now, do you have any one story of an instance where the meditations and all the help that you've done, what's the biggest impact that's kind of stuck with you?
Well, I think my own journey has just been so amazing. There's just so many things that have happened on it, and I think once you open up to this energy field of love, the vibration of love, that every day is a miracle, and there are so many miracles that go unnoticed, and it's
So
really
true.
important to notice those miracles,
okay.
so.
You said something earlier. You were wondering how you could reconnect to that point of unconditional love. What happened to me one time, the Buddhist monastery up in Smithfield, Rhode Island, it's Limelock Road. They've got a room that's maybe 12 feet by 25 feet,
Buddha room.
and it's full of Buddhas.
Oh.
And
I want to go.
And flowers.
as you walk in the room, they're little or getting bigger, to the biggest one is 7, 8 feet, 6, 8 feet, whatever it is. And I went walking in there one time, and my heart just completely opened up. So I would suggest
Very
take
good
yourself up
suggestion.
there,
Yeah.
and they're very welcoming of visitors. But it's an if you've done it once, you can do it again.
Yeah,
it's an
definitely.
interesting experience, and the Buddha energy of that room seems to let that happen for you.
Yeah.
So-
I find it so frequently that I can tap in nature. Like I was in New Hampshire at the basin, which is this beautiful waterfall that comes and it swirls around, and it's carved this rock out, and there's just beautiful waterfalls
Called
everywhere.
the Flume.
Yeah, there's
been there.
that part too. But it's just so inspirational, and they've actually shown that it changes your brain and everything. But I just find nature is, every time I go in nature, the ocean, the forest, I'm just so tapped in, and that's where I really find.
What part of Connecticut do you go to?
I'm down in Stratford a lot, yeah.
Which
so.
is near New York?
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes outside of the city. Yeah, and then I have to go into Manhattan a lot too, but yeah.
That'll very,
Got to get back
very
to nature.
nature-driven.